This vehicle is way out of your price range, pal.
I live here, sir. I am literally standing in my driveway.
Don't get smart with me. You don't fit the demographic here.
I'm not getting smart. I'm telling you, this is my house.
That's it. Turn around. You're going for a ride right now.
You really want to arrest a federal judge's son? Call your supervisor.
Officer Evan Bishop didn't ask a question when he slammed the driver's side door of his cruiser. He issued a command that wasn't in any handbook. He marched across the asphalt of the Copperfield Road diner parking lot, his hand already resting heavily on the holster at his hip, eyes locked on the teenager standing quietly near the entrance. There was no preliminary investigation, no casual observation, just an immediate kinetic trajectory toward conflict. He closed the distance in 6 strides, invading the personal space of the boy who was simply checking a text message. "Hands out of your pockets! Now!" Bishop barked, his voice pitching up to cut through the mid-afternoon traffic noise. He didn't wait for compliance. Before the teen could fully process the order, Bishop had grabbed the boy's left elbow, spinning him off balance and shoving him toward the brick wall of the diner. "I'm doing it! I'm doing it!" The teen Michael Johnson gasped, his hands shooting up in a surrender pose, phone clutched tight in his right palm. "I'm waiting for my dad. We have a table." "I don't care who you're waiting for," Bishop sneered, pinning Michael's shoulder against the rough brick. "You're soliciting. I've watched you pacing here for 10 minutes. You're done." It was a lie that would cost Bishop his career. He didn't know that the dispatch logs would later prove he had only arrived on scene 45 seconds prior. He didn't know that inside the diner, the dad Michael was waiting for was currently paying the bill for a coffee he'd had while waiting for his son's debate practice to end. And he certainly didn't know that the man inside was federal Judge Robert Johnson, a jurist, known for a terrifying adherence to constitutional procedure. But the most immediate threat to Bishop's pension wasn't the judge. It was the quiet, steady red dot blinking on a phone screen 3 tables away, recording every pixel of the aggression. Michael tried to stabilize his breathing. He knew the drill. He had the talk memorized better than the periodic table he studied for fun. He kept his hands visible. Fingers spread. He didn't turn around. He stared at the grease stains on the pavement, trying to keep the tremor out of his legs. "Officer, I am not soliciting," Michael said, his voice cracking but clear. "I am a customer. I have a receipt in my pocket if you let me reach for it. My father is inside." "Don't you reach for a damn thing," Bishop snapped. He kicked Michael's feet apart wider than necessary, forcing the boy into an unstable stance. "You people always have a receipt or a permit or an excuse. You don't belong in this zip code and we both know it." There it was. The sentence that would be typed into transcripts, read in depositions, and played on the evening news. You don't belong in this zip code. It hung in the air, toxic and undeniable. Inside the diner, the lunch rush was tapering off, but the window booths were full. A woman in a nursing uniform halfway through a club sandwich paused. She looked through the glass, then at her phone. She tapped the camera icon. She wasn't the only one. "Sir, I'm asking you to check my ID," Michael said, sweat trickling down his temple. The brick was scraping his cheek. "It's in my back pocket. My name is Michael Johnson. I'm 17. "I don't need your ID to know what you are," Bishop said. He pressed his forearm harder into Michael's back. "You're resisting. Stop tensing up." "I'm not tensing," Michael pleaded. "I'm just standing here." Bishop wasn't listening. He was performing. He looked around the parking lot, scanning for anyone who might challenge him, his face flushed with the adrenaline of a bully who believes he has found a victim without a voice. He keyed his shoulder radio, the static burst loud in Michael's ear. "Dispatch 4-Adam-20. I have 1 male detainee non-compliant, requesting a 2nd unit for transport, resisting arrest and soliciting." The radio crackled back, the dispatcher's voice distorted by a sudden gust of wind that swept through the parking lot, garbling the code. Bishop cursed and hit the button again, shouting this time, "I said send a unit, he's fighting me." Michael wasn't moving a muscle. He was paralyzed by the injustice of it. He was an honors student. He volunteered at the library on weekends. He had spent the morning finalizing his application for a summer legal internship. Now he was being treated like a threat to society because he was black and standing outside a diner in Cherry Creek. The door to the diner swung open. The manager, a balding man named Gary, who usually avoided conflict at all costs, stepped out. He looked at Bishop, then at Michael. He knew Michael. The kid came in every Tuesday with his dad. They ordered the same thing, coffee for the dad, strawberry shake for the son. "Officer," Gary said, his voice hesitant, "is there a problem that's a customer?" Bishop whipped his head around his sunglasses, reflecting the harsh sunlight. "Step back, sir. Unless you want to be cited for obstruction, you will back inside and shut that door." Gary froze. The threat worked. He wasn't a hero. He was a manager with a mortgage and a fear of authority. He looked at Michael with apologetic eyes and took half a step back, the door closing slightly. See, Bishop hissed in Michael's ear. Nobody's helping you. You're mine. He reached for his cuffs. The metallic ratchet sound was loud, a distinct click, click, click that signaled the end of the conversation and the beginning of the cage. He grabbed Michael's left wrist and yanked it behind his back, twisting it to a painful angle. You're hurting me, Michael cried out, the pain sharp in his shoulder. Stop resisting, Bishop yelled, playing to an audience that wasn't buying it anymore. Inside the diner, the man in the corner booth stood up. He had been reviewing a case file highlighting paragraphs in yellow, waiting for his son to text that he was outside. He checked his watch. Michael was late. That wasn't like him. He stood up, dropped a 20 on the table, and walked toward the door. He didn't run. Judge Robert Johnson never ran. He moved with the deliberate, heavy momentum of a glacier. Outside, Bishop had the first cuff on. He was struggling with the second, mostly because Michael's other arm was pinned against the wall, not because the boy was fighting. Bishop yanked Michael away from the wall, spinning him around to face the cruiser. Get on the hood, Bishop ordered. I didn't do anything, Michael shouted, tears of frustration finally spilling over. Why won't you listen? I don't listen to criminals, Bishop spat. He shoved Michael down onto the hot metal of the cruiser's hood. The heat radiated through Michael's t-shirt. He turned his head to the side, his cheek pressed against the paint, and saw the black SUV parked 3 spots down. He saw the figure walking toward them. Robert Johnson stepped out of the diner. He was wearing a casual blazer, but his posture was courtroom rigid. He took in the scene in a single second, his son pinned to a police car, one cuff dangling an officer with a red face and a hand on his taser. Robert didn't yell. He didn't wave his arms. He walked straight toward the line of fire. Officer, Robert said. His voice was a baritone rumble projected from the diaphragm designed to fill a lecture hall or silence a courtroom. Release that young man. Bishop looked up startled. He saw a tall black man in a blazer approaching with authority. Bishop's bias kicked in instantly. He didn't see a judge. He saw another threat. He saw an accomplice. Back the hell up, Bishop shouted, putting a hand up. Stay back or you're going in the back too. Robert stopped exactly 10 feet away. He didn't flinch. I am instructing you to release him. You have no probable cause. I have observed this young man for the last 17 years. He is waiting for me. He's soliciting, Bishop yelled, doubling down because he was too deep to turn back. And he's resisting now, back away. Soliciting what? Robert asked, his voice deadly calm. He is a minor. He is my son. And you are currently violating his Fourth Amendment rights and bordering on a Title 18. Violation for deprivation of rights under color of law. Bishop paused. The specific legal phrasing hit him, but his ego was louder. I don't care what you think you know. He's under arrest. Bishop finished clicking the second cuff. Michael winced. Dad, Michael whispered. I didn't do anything. I know son Robert said his eyes never leaving Bishop's badge number. Be quiet. Say nothing else. I'm handling this. Bishop smirked. Oh, you're handling it. You a lawyer or something? One of those public defenders who thinks he runs the city? Something like that, Robert said. He reached into his blazer pocket. Don't! Bishop's hand went to his gun. Hands where I can see them. Robert froze, moving very slowly. He used 2 fingers to extract a leather wallet. He flipped it open. He didn't hold it up like a movie badge. He held it steady at eye level. Robert Johnson, United States District Court Judge, District of Colorado. The silence that followed was absolute. The traffic noise seemed to fade. The wind stopped. Bishop squinted at the credential. The gold seal caught the sun. The word judicial was clear. Bishop blinked. His brain tried to reject the information. A federal judge. Here. With this kid. That's fake, Bishop stammered. You printed that? I assure you, Robert said, the United States Marshal Service does not print fakes. Now I'm going to ask you one more time, uncuff my son, or I will make a phone call that will end your career before you can finish your shift. Bishop was trapped. If he uncuffed him, he admitted he was wrong. If he didn't, he was arresting a federal judge's son in front of the judge. Panic set in. He chose the path of the cornered animal. Verify it, Bishop said, his voice shaking. I'm calling it in. Until then, he stays in cuffs. Procedure. Procedure. Robert repeated the word, tasting like ash. Very well, follow your procedure. Bishop grabbed his radio. Dispatch, I have an individual on scene claiming to be a federal official. Requesting a supervisor immediately. Code 3. Copy code 3. Sergeant Miller is 2 minutes out, dispatch replied. Those 2 minutes were an eternity. Michael stood leaning against the hood, hands cuffed behind him, head down. Robert stood 10 feet away, a sentinel in a blazer. Bishop paced, checking his peripheral vision, realizing that the crowd had grown. There were 5 phones recording now. The nurse was still filming. A guy in a delivery truck had pulled over and was filming out his window. Bishop felt the weight of the lenses. He tried to block the view of Michael shifting his body, but Michael was taller than him. "You really stepped in it, didn't you?" a voice called out from the sidewalk. A construction worker in a neon vest. Kid was just standing there. "Quiet!" Bishop yelled. "Clear the area!" "This is a public sidewalk," Robert said. "They have a First Amendment right to record. Do not order them to leave." Bishop turned on Robert. "You don't give orders here. I'm the police." "And I am the judiciary," Robert said. "We check your work." The siren cut through the tension. A marked SUV squealed into the lot, tires biting the asphalt. Sergeant Miller leaped out before the vehicle fully settled. He was an older officer gray at the temples, with the weary look of a man who spent his days putting out fires started by rookies. He saw the scene Bishop red-faced and manic. A teenager in cuffs, a man in a blazer standing like a statue, and a ring of civilians holding phones. Miller's internal alarm bells went from yellow to red instantly. "Bishop, what do we have?" Miller asked, walking briskly toward them. "Suspect was soliciting loitering," Bishop said fast, the words tumbling out. "Resisted arrest? Then this guy shows up, interferes, claims he's a judge." Miller turned to Robert. He looked at the face. He paused. He didn't need to see the badge. He had testified in Robert's courtroom 3 months ago regarding a search warrant application. He felt the blood drain from his face. "Judge Johnson," Miller said, his voice dropping to a respectful, horrified tone. Sergeant Robert nodded. "I believe your officer is under the impression that my credentials are counterfeit, and that my son, who is an honor roll student waiting for a ride, is a solicitor." Miller closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, inhaling deeply. He turned to Bishop. The look on Miller's face wasn't anger. It was the look of a man watching a car crash he couldn't stop. "Bishop," Miller said quietly, "do you have the keys to those cuffs?" "Sargie, he was resisting," Bishop protested, desperate to keep his narrative alive. "And the guy, he didn't show ID until—" "Keys. Now," Miller barked. Bishop fumbled for his keys. His hands were shaking so badly he dropped them. They clattered on the asphalt. "Pick them up," Miller said. Bishop bent down, snatching the keys. He moved toward Michael. "No," Robert said. "Not him. You do it, Sergeant." Miller nodded. He took the keys from Bishop's trembling hand. He walked over to Michael. "I'm sorry, son. Turn around for me." Miller unlocked the cuffs. Michael rubbed his wrists, wincing. There were red marks where the metal had bitten into the skin. "Are you injured?" Miller asked. "My shoulder hurts," Michael said softly. "He pulled it pretty hard." "We'll get paramedics to look at that," Miller said. He turned back to Bishop. "Go to the car, sit in the passenger seat. Don't touch the radio. Don't touch your phone." "Sergeant, car, now." Bishop walked to the cruiser. He looked back once at the crowd, at the judge, at the boy. He saw the phone still raised. He saw the nurse shaking her head. He slumped into the seat. Miller turned to Robert. "Judge, I need to call the lieutenant. We're going to need to document this properly." "Yes," Robert said. "You will. I want the body cam footage pulled and preserved immediately. I want the dash cam footage tagged. And I want the contact information for every witness standing here." "Already on it," Miller said. He pulled out his notepad. He looked at the dashboard of Bishop's car. He walked over, reached in, and pulled the keys from the ignition, effectively grounding the vehicle. He then keyed his radio, but he used the secure channel. "Dispatch show 4 Adam 20 out of service. Requesting a watch commander to my location. Priority." "Reason?" dispatch asked. Miller looked at the text file on his cruiser's laptop screen, the personnel file he had pulled up while driving over, just to see who Bishop was tangling with. He saw the entry for Judge Robert Johnson. "Personnel issue," Miller said into the mic. "Serious misconduct." The next 20 minutes were a clinic in institutional cleanup. A white shirt, a lieutenant arrived. Then a captain. They didn't huddle with Bishop to get his story. They went straight to Robert. They shook his hand. They spoke in low, apologetic tones. Michael sat on the bumper of his dad's SUV, drinking a bottle of water the nurse had given him. He watched the machinery of the department turn against one of its own. It was swift. It was brutal. The captain walked over to Bishop's car. He opened the door. "Bishop, give me your badge and your gun." "Captain, I was just following—" "Badge and gun? You're suspended pending investigation. You don't ride back in a patrol car. We're sending a van." Bishop unclipped his holster. He unpinned the shield from his chest. He handed them over. He looked smaller without the hardware. He looked like just a guy in a polyester shirt who had made a terrible mistake. As the captain walked back, holding the badge, he passed Robert. "We have the footage, Judge," the captain said. We reviewed the buffer on the body cam. It captured the initial approach. And Robert asked. And he said, you don't belong in this zip code, the captain recited, his face grim. We heard it clear as day. Robert nodded. Boomerang, he whispered to himself. Excuse me. Nothing, Robert said. Just make sure that line is in the report. Verbatim. It will be, the captain promised. Anchor 1 the video, Anchor 2 the log. We have the dispatch log showing he lied about the timing. He called in soliciting 30 seconds after arrival. Impossible to establish probable cause that fast. Robert put a hand on Michael's shoulder. You okay? Yeah, Michael said. Just, I didn't think he'd actually do it. They rely on fear, Robert said. And they rely on us being alone. You weren't alone. I know, Michael said. He looked at the witnesses who were still lingering, giving statements to Sergeant Miller. They stayed. They stayed, Robert agreed. 3 days later, the press release was brief. It didn't mention the judge by name, citing privacy for the minor. But the outcome was public record. Officer Evan Bishop has been terminated effective immediately following an internal review of an incident on Copperfield Road. The review found violations of policy regarding use of force, unlawful detention, and conduct unbecoming of an officer. The department has also forwarded the case to the district attorney for potential criminal charges. Michael sat at the kitchen table reading the news on his tablet. His wrist was still sore, wrapped in an ace bandage. Robert was at the stove making eggs. He got fired, Michael said. He did, Robert said, flipping an egg. The system worked, eventually. Because of you, Michael said. Robert turned off the burner. He leaned against the counter. Partly, but mostly because you didn't fight back. You didn't give him the excuse he wanted. You held your dignity. That's harder than what I do. He put the plate down in front of his son. And Robert added, because people filmed. Never forget that. The truth needs witnesses. Michael looked at the screen again. The video was viral now. Millions of views. The comment section was a mix of outrage and support. But the top comment with 20,000 likes wasn't about the anger. It was a quote. You don't belong in this zip code. And the reply underneath it, actually he owns the block now. This story highlights a specific mechanism of justice, the collision of bias with unexpected institutional power. While the presence of a federal judge father is a rare trump card, the real lessons lie in the procedural failures of the officer and the correct actions of the witnesses. The officer failed to establish articulable suspicion, a legal requirement that is more than just a hunch. He moved to physical restraint before investigation, a violation of the escalation of force continuum. Practical takeaways, Bystanders. If you are stopped, always ask if you are free to leave or if you are being detained. If detained calmly, ask for the specific reason or crime suspected. This locks the officer into a narrative that can be disproven later. Next, do not physically resist even an unlawful arrest, as resisting is a separate charge that can stick even if the original arrest was bogus. Instead, verbalize your non-consent loudly for witnesses and cameras stating, I am not resisting, but I do not consent to this search/seizure. Then if you are a witness film from a safe distance without interfering physically, your footage is the objective anchor that cuts through he said/she said reports. Finally, request a supervisor immediately if you believe rights are being violated, as they are often more concerned with liability and policy than the officer on the street. Some elements are selectively fictionalized for education.